ask, what is WHub? Why does it matter? So I can explain that. About 4 years ago, the Hong Kong startup scene didn't even exist. So this MakerHive, like maker spaces, the fact that we've got all these co-working spaces now, none of that even existed really like 4 years ago. But at that time, two people, Karen Farzam and Karina Bellin, I think depending upon if you've been in Hong Kong for a while, you may know who they are. Basically they decided, okay, well, there's no one resource to put together all of the different entities that could help companies get started. So essentially Florian did a really good job giving the micro view of what it's like to start from zero and go all the way to creating an actual product that you can sell. And congrats on distribution with Guitar Center, by the way, because that was a great milestone. But there are a lot of things to learn going all the way from 0 to 1. So what I'd like to do is give you a bit of information about sort of the greater startup ecosystem, and I'm going to run through it quickly because I know we don't have that much time.
And then if you wish to receive the link to the presentation, so you have a list of all the spaces and the funds and the grants, and then you can see it there.
Yeah. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through all these slides really quickly because you can go through in detail if you want to read them online or something later. We have the Startups Toolbox. I think it's on SlideShare, so you can go and look. It's a 125-page document. We're actually creating all of the new stuff for the version 2, which will come out just before the RISE conference. Has anyone heard of RISE or familiar with what's going on? Okay, so basically we are doing a lot of work updating all of our slide decks because things are changing so fast, so that the investment numbers, the amount of companies that are starting up, companies that started 2 years ago are maturing and things are changing. So let's get started. WHub it's Hong Kong's best resource for startups, essentially. Are you familiar with AngelList? Essentially, you can think of this as the AngelList for Hong Kong. There are differences, definitely, but that's the easiest way if you're already familiar with something. There are, I think when I checked today, there are actually 1,400 startups on the platform, and about 2,000 job openings, and about 8,000 people who've registered. I think total community is about 10,000 people registered on the website, and it's growing. So pop over to www.whub.io, and you can log in through LinkedIn or Google. I think there are a couple of options, but it would be really great if you logged in because then we can keep track of you and help you when you need it. So Hong Kong startups, right? You've got the GDP that's equivalent to a city like Seattle, right? 320 billion USD in 2016. You have a GDP that's fairly high. And then of course we've got GDP growth 2%, nothing to shake a stick at necessarily, but still fairly mature since Hong Kong, I mean obviously a mature market. And the total ecosystem value, obviously valuations are an art, not a science. They're saying it's about 3.2 billion USD. They're saying it's like the 5th fastest ecosystem growing globally. Lots of numbers you can actually pour over when you have the time. But it's looking like Hong Kong is an excellent place, and it's probably because it's situated next to Shenzhen, which is obviously a manufacturing powerhouse. So part of my goal in the next, say, 6 months to a year is to figure out how to really illustrate the point of Hong Kong and Shenzhen together as a symbiotic ecosystem. Because I spend a lot of time in Shenzhen, I go back and forth every couple of weeks, and I used to live there for 2 years. But I think that once you spend time in mainland and Hong Kong, you can really tell where the energy is in Shenzhen, growing 7-8% per year with all kinds of factories and interesting things happening. So that's going to be a huge growth opportunity. So this is actually a terrible idea, but they're talking about it a lot. So you'll see this in the newspaper. Lok Ma Chau is basically on the border. They're saying it's going to be 7 years in the making. So who wants to wait 7 years? There's going to be a lot more happening in the meantime. The district to watch, in my opinion, is Qianhai 1. Have you guys heard of Qianhai? So that's like basically the Shenzhen government and mainland government all the way at the top of the party is saying, we're going to build a little Singapore inside of Shenzhen. They're trying to relax trade relations and allow Shenzhen companies to be a little bit more like Hong Kong. So a really rigid, robust legal structure to make Shenzhen a lot more trustworthy of an environment to work on. And it seems like they're pouring billions of dollars into it. I would say watch Qianhai instead of the local Manchao Park. But again, we're updating these documents. So right now you can look at sort of this nice little wheel. A lot of the startups in Hong Kong are actually e-commerce related. So you've got e-commerce, you've got a little bit of hardware, not as much as you might think, but it's still a very nascent ecosystem. Hong Kong has traditionally been very corporate finance biased, and so people either grow up to be investment bankers, doctors, lawyers, or they move to Canada. So the gender gap, it's more biased for male founders than females, as you would find, but it's actually a bit better ratio than you would find in traditional tech in, say, Silicon Valley. So here we have Soundbrayer as one of our wearable tech startups, and this one is actually for parents. So companies like that are really good to talk to within the ecosystem. So WHub is a very good place to find it as you expand upon the kind of hardware product that you might be making as you pitch. Grana, actually I saw a Grana box over there. It's quite an interesting company because they're taking care of the logistics. So it's a lot easier to ship globally from Hong Kong, as you said, because in a big market like the US, you can just take it directly from Hong Kong and put it into the port of Long Beach and distribute throughout the entire US and not have to worry about all the borders. Grana realized that if they based their operations here, they could ship people t-shirts anywhere in the world and really lower the cost just by getting high quality materials and making essentially a Uniqlo for people who like to buy online. They don't have any actual physical retail outlets that you can purchase and walk home with the product. They have a few pop-up stores where you can test a product and then order the rest of it online. So it's quite an innovative model that leverages some unique capability of Hong Kong. I think Grana's a really interesting company to watch. Carousel is actually, think of it like buying and selling things that you peer-to-peer purchasing, something similar to like Instagram or Pinterest, where you can just click on a photo and say, oh, I'd like to buy that, and you buy and sell from your peers. It's actually more of a Singaporean company, but still has a presence here. These, as you can see, Flowship is on here, happens to be one of the sponsors tonight. Easy Ship and Lalamove all are logistics. If you want to buy things, if you've ever ordered anything from Taobao in China, you know that it arrives almost instantly, even faster than they tell you. So it's like, oh, you're going to expect it in 2 days, and it comes in 2 hours. So that's a huge push of all these logistic companies. Lalamove is actually very close to being $1 billion company. So last I heard, so you had two competitors, GoGoVan and Lalamove. Lalamove decided that they were going to look at Southeast Asia and start hiring people on motorbikes instead of renting vans like you see here in Hong Kong for GoGoVan. And Lalamove has actually proven to be a much better strategy, even though when they started, they were essentially identical companies. So Lalamove is a great company to keep your eye on. SnapAsk, they've raised funding, but not necessarily getting much traction. Tink Labs, has anyone heard of Tink Labs? Yeah, no? So actually they were in Bloomberg recently because they raised $120 million, I think, at a $500 million valuation. And more recently, they're looking to raise more funding at a $1 billion valuation. So technically, that's Hong Kong's first unicorn, which, those are just numbers, but it's still interesting. So if we're looking for funding, you have Digital Garage, which invested in Mind Fund. So Digital Garage is very, very big in Japan, and a lot of Japanese funds are looking toward Hong Kong and Southeast Asia because it's a good way to secure the future. Japan is not very optimistic about things progressing optimistically in the future, so they're actually investing quite a lot in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Southeast Asia, and also a bit in Hong Kong. So if you're familiar with the AI platform called Zero, they recently had 10 companies as part of a cohort, though Hong Kong had its first AI accelerator. And some of the money from that accelerator was from Mind Fund. So that's where that money goes. You've also got something, so Alibaba Entrepreneur Fund, that was, they invested in a few companies and had a big announcement, but that still remains to be seen. So large corporate partners, Alibaba definitely involved in getting people through their ecosystem. They've already IPO'd and they have a lot of cash on hand, so as part of their sort of investment arm, they're putting it into startups here in Hong Kong and around the region. Megatron is one of the accelerators. It's a 4-month startup accelerator providing funding and mentorship. You're starting to see more and more accelerators like this. Another one I'm going to mention, the Cage 12-week full-time program kicking off in May 2017. Supercharter is specifically for financial tech, fintech. Basically blockchain. If you've worked in corporate finance before, you'll understand why there's such a need for technology to disrupt the sector, but it's happening slowly because there's a lot of regulatory constraints that you need to go through. Hong Kong is probably one of the best. You have New York, you have London, and then probably Hong Kong in terms of tenacity for fintech startups. That's going to be something that comes slowly, but I think you'll see payments on the consumer side, and then obviously blockchain, ledger technology is going to be slowly working its way into our personal habits, right? Like buying, selling, transferring funds on WeChat, things like that. Supercharger has been sort of the one accelerator that's claimed fintech so far, but we're going to see probably more in the next few months. Read Write Labs, also a 6-week gateway program in Hong Kong for startups. Let's see. Facebook also has announced, they have a presence in Hong Kong, but it's mostly ad sales. So you don't have much in the way of innovation coming out of Facebook. But what they have done is a startup program for some developers helping Hong Kong startups work together with Facebook. Basically, people who really need to understand how best to optimize like their ad sales or apps. So Facebook is playing a small part, but it's not something huge. You see a lot more of that in Singapore than Hong Kong. Okay, so I will touch on Brink because I know that Florian was a part of that program, and I think you can see that the results are fairly clear. Definitely a useful partner in the process with all of the unknowns that come with starting a hardware company. I can just read this. The focus is to support hardware founders to establish critical early stage validation and traction with functional prototypes over a 4-month sprint. I think what he said is $25,000 went to making a prototype. That's a very expensive Soundrunner Pulse. So once you get to that point and you can crowdfund, that's really what those partners are there to do. And I think Hong Kong is probably the best place in the world to do that. Enter China. So I have to disclose, I've actually been a part of the Enter China team for about 3 months now. Basically, Nick Ramil, who's the head of validation at Brink, he used everything that he learned about how to do crowdfunding, walking people through customer discovery, a lot of tips and tricks for getting people up to speed on creating their own crowdfunding campaigns, things you can't really learn very quickly without having done it yourself. He started Enter China a few years back, which turned into what he does now for his role in validation, and I think he probably worked closely with Florian in the pre-crowdfunding campaign, right? There's a whole month of sending emails to 20,000 people, getting people primed so that when you put your product on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, they know about it and they can immediately contribute to that campaign, which will lead to later venture capital rounds probably down the road if you're successful. So Enter China really is just the very, very, very beginning of that. You don't have to have a product, it's basically just an idea. You can go to enterchina.co and learn a little bit more. But again, I'm part of the team, so I'm not trying to pitch that necessarily. Corporate accelerators, you also have Nest. If you take the time to go to Lang Kwai Fong in California Tower, their office is on, I think it's the 18th or 21st floor or something. You'll find Meta, which is a beautiful space. They have events Really, really helpful to the startup community working with corporates. So DBS Bank, AIA Insurance, and then Infinity, who's looking for new ways to market and sell cars. Nest has been an incredibly important partner for them, building relationships from startup to corporate. Finally, you can see crowdfunding. You've got Kickstarter. Kello was a really, really great success, and I think they are in the production stage, basically getting their final molds done. It's an alarm clock, but it's helping. It's a sleep device that's sort of the sleep device of the future. Great team, also part of Brink's cohort, and you can see all of their updates on their Facebook pages. They're walking you through how to communicate with people who've backed your hardware project. Really, really great. Antoine and his brother and someone else, they've been doing a very good job building this alarm clock hardware product connected device. Finally, you've got co-working spaces. So I don't think I see the Hive on here, but there are probably about 100 co-working spaces in Hong Kong now. 4 years ago, I think there were 0. I think the Hive in Wan Chai was actually the first. So you can see how, looking for industrial spaces like this, they've really, really gone to work, creating sort of fertile environment for people to come and rent a desk and really make their idea come to life. Let's see. Finally, you've got a few of these technology trends: artificial intelligence, digital currencies, and mesh networks. And that's pretty much all I have for today. I know everyone's tired. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can talk to me after I'm finished, or you can go to the WHub website. It's WHUB.io. And again, my name is Nick. Thank you.